Hello, welcome to Let's Get Weird Together. I'm your host, Marie Miller, with House of Kellen. And if you've been listening, if you only know from this podcast, you might not be aware that one of my first jobs actually is professional psychic. So we are going to talk about the energy that we're bringing into 2025 and what it's going to be like. We're going to go through each month individually. And the way my readings work when I do a year ahead is I look at what is the energy the collective is going through. What are the lessons that are available? So it's not necessarily what's going to happen. It's more like here is a lesson that's available to everyone, and you can choose to work through your issues around this arena or that topic, or you can choose not to. And if you don't, that's fine. It's just going to come up later a little bit more intensely. So I do include belief work that you can do and sometimes a little bit of journaling, whichever way that you want to work through it. Because basically, as a collective, we're going to go through a lot of stuff right now. And I've been checking in with some of my fellow healers these last 3 months, like as we're rounding out 2024. What happens a lot is like the healers and leaders will go through things before the collective does. Like we're getting ready to heal that part of ourselves so that when the rest of the world goes through it, we're like, okay, we got you. So it was really interesting to see how many people I knew were going through a really intense falling tower energy at the end of 2024. And if you're not familiar with cards, falling tower is basically when you're breaking down your belief system, when you have to re-examine everything that you know to be true and decide, is that still the highest truth for me today? A lot of times this happens when you're going back and you're looking at, do I still want to believe what my parents taught me to believe? Am I going to continue the things that I was taught just because I was taught it? Or am I going to turn a critical eye to what I assume is true about the world and dig a little bit deeper and see what really is true now? Because there's so many things that worked well for our ancestors that do not work for us now. So I was really fascinated with that huge falling tower energy when I laid out the cards for 2025 to notice that there was not any falling towers. But there's a lot of really interesting things happening. So when I first laid them out, I'm like, oh, it's not going to be too bad. And then I laid some runes. I'm like, oh no, that's a little intense. And just like some of my friends doing their readings, I needed extra cards this year because usually I do one card per month, but it's two cards per month. And the reason we do that in readings is to sort of pull out the nuances of the card. So it's going to end up being a good year. So I also drew a card to understand what are we going to end up with? What's going to happen after all of this wonderful transitions we're going through? What are we going to be left with? And I love the fact that I drew the Four of Swords. And this is my dragon deck. Um, and the message and Ansus. So one caveat as you're listening to this, I learned runes from a book 20 years ago. So my pronunciation of the runes might be a little off, so please give me a little bit of grace with that because I haven't gotten around to learning Old Norse yet, but it's on my list. But I digress. So the year itself is going to be a lot about learning which battles to pick. It calls overall, the year calls on us to really listen to ourselves, listen to the message that we're getting from beyond, from creator, from whoever you pray to be really in tune with your guides and really take to heart the messages that you're getting. Um, yeah, and to choose your battles. That seems to come up over and over again, to choose your battles. Like you're not, and it's not that you don't need to fight for everything that you believe in, but understand what is the thing that you came here to fight for and what can someone else fight for and you can help them fight for it. Does that make sense? Um, yeah, because there's just going to be a lot of things changing that you're not going to have the energy that you need to fight every single battle that you want to fight this year. So also overall, the energy is calling for us to adapt, to change, to rethink how we've been thinking. It's going to come up over and over again throughout the year. There's going to be so many opportunities to change your thinking, to change your behaviors, to change what you believe, and to double check your biases, double check all of your assumptions. And it comes up month after month, which is interesting. And just so you know, when we get into this, the work that we do in January and February, if that's not addressed, it's going to come up later in the year in a bit heavier way. And also, just so you know, you want to make sure you're doing a lot of really good self-care. I actually got that message back in November that back in November was a good time to start setting up what is your self-care routines. So you want to make sure that you are ahead of it instead of waiting until you are stressed out and overwhelmed by the year, that you already know exactly what you're going to do to release the stress, to really bring your nervous system back into that calm state. So hopefully you already have some good self-care practices, but they're going to be very important in the coming year because we're going to go through so much that it may feel overwhelming, but it's all going to be amazing when we're done with it. So let's look at the months, right? So January it can be a huge one. It can be amazing, but you have to face your attachment to being the underdog. Right? There's literally, because I have the Knight of Chalices, but like under the energy of the devil. And so what that says to me is, what is your devotion to being trapped? Like, in what way do you have a secondary benefit from feeling out of control in your life? And this is a harsh one. This is something that I actually faced in the end of November when I realized that I had a huge attachment to anger. And here's the funny thing, if you are attached to being angry, you need someone or something to be angry at. And when you're angry at them, you're giving your power away to them. So, in a lot of ways, we need to look at what is our attachment to being a victim? And what do we get out of having someone else be the one who's putting something on us instead of us acknowledging that in some small way, subconsciously, we may have created the situation. And for everyone, it's going to be different. For me, when I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really love being angry. I understood, I had this deeper understanding that some of the things that I was getting mad about, it was just, there was no intent from the other people to make me angry. So it's just me holding on to the anger and assigning anger when there didn't need to be any. So, and again, anger, like I said, so this year I'm going to be writing my book on forgiveness, and trust me, half of it's going to be about anger. So you need to have a deeper understanding of your anger this year. Is it constructive? Because there is a lot of reasons to be truly angry, because we need the anger to some level to motivate us to change our lives. But you also have to be honest with yourself when you're angry just to be angry, when you're angry just to be the victim. And if you can discern when your anger is helping you versus your anger is helping you, hurting you versus helping, and learn to let go of the anger that's actually hurting you, where you're giving your power away for no reason. When you can resolve that and work through that, that's when you're going to have the biggest transformation. And it's going to make this year a lot easier. Because the other thing, too, is when it comes to picking your battles, when it comes to fighting what you want to fight, um, it's good if you process at least some of your anger, because you're going to be heard better. You're going to get your point across better. You're going to be able to actively listen to the other side and respond to what they're actually saying instead of just shouting them down. So, for my theta healers, things to look at, the beliefs you want to check is, on any level, am I learning from my anger? Or do I like to be angry? Or do I need anger to get through the day? The other reason to address anger right away is, as healers and leaders and people who are here to help others, when we have this need to help, we're like, oh my God, I have to help all the people. We will go into overwork, we'll go over into overwhelm. We tend to overgive. And what this does is this puts strain on your adrenals. I think I spoke about this in the fall. And when you go into adrenal fatigue, then you need anger to motivate yourself. Like we use anger to keep ourselves going throughout the day, and you're just going to wear your body down. So be aware of how you use anger and what is your relationship to anger. So that's January. February. Ooh, constraint. February, the runes are saying you're basically going to feel like everything's kind of closing in. There's going to be a squeezing and a constraint and like a closeness. It's going to be uncomfortable and you may not feel it. It can be something from your subconscious. It can also be just the squeezing energy that's coming in from the collective. Um, and this, so last month, so January is about anger. This is about really, really seeing the truth in ourselves. So this is going to be about understanding what is my, what are the things that I have caused subconsciously? Because here's the thing, it's uncomfortable to think that we're the ones causing the situation in our life that causes pain. Um, but we get into these stories about ourselves. So one example is, I don't know if we've probably all met someone who's like, oh my gosh, all of my exes are crazy. They're all crazy, right? And they go into this story. And at some point, you have to ask, what is the thing that all of these people have in common? Well, it's the person you're talking to. So is the highest truth that everyone was unbalanced? Or is that perception, is that just their perception of them? Because they refuse to acknowledge the emotions of the person? Or is it because dating them was what drove them to be to act a little erratically? It can just be that they're addicted to drama and calling in partners who supply the drama is what they need. So, what is the story that you have about yourself or about the world where you're like, this is the way the world works? And again, it's going to that victim energy, and I'm the one who's a victim of this energy, as opposed to acknowledging maybe I'm learning something from this and I'm calling it in. So, beliefs to check. Everyone else is the problem. On any level, I'm afraid of change. On all levels, ease is the truth in myself. And if you want to journal, maybe journal on what's a story that I'd love to change about myself. So, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a bumpy ride this year. So, the more honest you can be with yourself about yourself, the easier it's going to go. So, going into March, it's going to mellow out for sure to some degree as far as the self-introspection. Many people in the collective are going to be pretty raw. And things are not, okay, sorry, things are not actually slowing down, but they're going to shift, right? We're going to get a wave of spiritual upgrade that is not going to be comfortable for everything, for everyone. And this wave of spiritual upgrades is going to be in response to some global events. So compassion is really called for because this whole planet is going to go through an upgrade together. And even people who think everything that I talk about is bunk and don't believe in all that woo stuff are going to be experiencing new sensations. And we're all going to be going through it. Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this massive upgrade and shift in people's psychic abilities is going to manifest itself. But even since September of last year, there's been a little niggling thing in my brain that something interesting is going to happen in March. So keep your eyes open again. Hopefully, you will have by then, if you haven't already, by then you'll have set up some of your self-care and you're in a good routine. Yeah, it's going to be fun, but we're definitely going to expand a lot. We're definitely going to have a huge expansion, and it's not always going to be comfortable for everyone. Like I said, it is the Empress and the Queen of Wands with Soalu. which to me, that combination is just creating a lot of intensity, but a lot of upgrades. So again, just remember you don't have to be at the mercy of your gifts. We are allowed to work with them, even though they do tend to be intense when you first come in. So April is when we get a break. It's only positive cards. I love it. There is definitely, so you have the three of chalices with laughter, which is just, it's about time. So hopefully, if you've been integrating the lessons of each month, this month is going to flow smoothly for you. But if you've been fighting the energy of the past 3 months, you may miss some things. But this is a great time to start new creative projects, meet new people, be in the flow, bust out your art supplies. There's, you know, I I'm not don't feel obligated to do any belief work this month unless you really want to. If you want to get ahead of things, just like I know how to let my friends really know me. It's safe to tell my friends that I love them. I'm allowed to have many friends. I'm creative. Um, yeah, if friendship has been something that hasn't worked well for you in the past that you've been struggling with, then yeah, it may be time to do some relief work because part of what's happening this month is you're pulling in some of the new people that are going to help you through the rest of the year. So it's definitely a time to reach out, start something new, and make new connections. Now, optionally, if May's go or if April's going super smooth for you, and you're feeling great and you want to get ahead of things, I would do some forgiveness work, to be honest, because that's going to come up later. um, but anything that you can do to get ahead of the curve, because I'll definitely be, but I be doing some forgiveness work probably actually this next week, to be honest, because I love doing that and getting ahead. And a journaling prompt that you can do in April is if I could do anything, like if you weren't worried about money, and this is basically you want to set a timer for 10 minutes and really, really dream big and just keep listing things that if there's no barriers, what would you create in this world? Because that's going to be a really, really good month to dream big and to start projects and to move energy forward. So May, energy shifts. It's going to be a huge, we've got Temperance, we've got the King of Chalices, but we've got Perth backwards. We've got Perth backwards. Um, so we can't keep doing the same old things, being the same people, and expect to be comfortable this month, right? So if you are okay with transformation, if you just love exploring and spelunking through your brain and changing things, this is going to be a fun month because this is another huge month of change. And especially in our relationship to how we communicate emotionally. So this is the time for you to really understand who you are as an emotional communicator, how you hold space for others when they communicate emotions. If you feel like you haven't been received on an emotional level your whole life, this month is going to be a little rough because it's going to be super important to learn how to truly communicate. So what this may look like is people trying to get their point across and not being heard. Because if you've never been heard, it's hard to receive what someone else is saying. So it's going to look like a lot of big fights on Facebook where people are basically shouting each other down and no one's really listening. And again, if we learned how to deal with our anger and in January, this might go a little bit easier. So like I said, the months stack on top of each other with the lessons. And learning so if you found new friends the month before, right? In April, if you went out, you found new friends and you were able to bond with them, then it may go a little bit easier if you feel like your feelings are being heard. But if you had to this point, if before May, you've never had someone really hold space for your emotions and you don't know how to express yourself and you don't know how to listen to others, it's going to be a lot of fights. I'm just going to be honest. It's just going to be a lot of personal fights if you haven't done the work to know that your feelings are valid and to express them in a way where you're not blaming other people. Because when we're new to emotional expression, it's always about this is how I feel. You made me feel this way, as opposed to here were the actions that I'm left feeling this way. What was your intention? So there's a lot of nuances in our self-expression that really need to come forward. So what I would say is be really, really kind to yourself and patient. And honestly, it's a good month to journal a lot of things and maybe journal it out before you speak it to others if emotional expression is a new thing for you. Yeah, people are going to be getting their feelings hurt very quickly in May. June. Yeah. It's a good thing we found new friends because in June, we're going to be falling out of sync with the people around you. Don't burn any bridges if you can. Again, that level of misunderstanding is going to sort of continue. We have radio upside down. We have it reversed. And I love this rune when it's upright because it's about being in communication, like deep communication. It's about the oneness as you ride the horse, right? It's one of the three runes that relates to horses. And it's about being in rhythm with things, being like in sync, and you're just going to fall out of sync. And this falling out of sync is a way for us to understand what needs to shift without needing to create something dramatic, but it is going to create tension and it is going to make you feel like sort of out of tune with the people around you. So give your friends space, give people space, especially give your family space. Might be a good month to take a social media break if you haven't already. So another thing that is saying is like take time with your decisions. Get comfortable saying, I'm going to get back to you on that, or I don't know. Let me, again, not rushing into decisions. Because the energy that we establish in this month is going to last. Whatever we end up with, however the month ends, is going to be the energy that sort of persists for a while. We're going to set ourselves up for a new relationship to our emotions. Like this, like I said, this is going to be a very emotional year. It's going to be understood. It's going to be interesting. So belief work, on any level, people have to see things my way or I'm invalidated. I'm allowed to have boundaries with people I love. And it's easy for me to find people who really get me. So those are belief statements that you want to check to see if they're true or false in you. And then shift those, shift whatever's causing those. And if you want to journal, the journaling prompt would be, what do I make it mean about myself when I'm misunderstood by others? That's a fun one. July, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's going on globally because it's going to be an intense month. I mean, to be honest, so is August, right? Things are going to stay intense until September, and then the dam's going to burst and things are going to change. Issues around safety are going to be huge in July. Um, And with good reason, is a lot of things are going to be changing. So there's going to be a reason for people to have these feelings around safety. There's going to be something going down that's going to bring that up in the collective in a very, very big way. Um, and so if this is going to be another month where things are going to be intense, if you haven't been working through things as they come up throughout the year, right? If you've just been trying to like anybody who's been like avoiding feeling things this year, um, it's going to intensify. There's going to be anger, disruptions, interesting things going on legally. So it's keep an eye on the courts around the country. Um, yeah, because there's going to be a lot of things changing, a lot of things around self-perception. And it can be easy to feel powerless when this energy comes in. It can be easy to feel like things are out of control and there's nothing that you can do. So my message for my healers out there and for everyone is to understand there are things that you actually can do, that you do have power. And again, I come back to when it works, how the collective consciousness works. Because again, it's going to feel like things are out of your control because of how big of the scale of things that are happening. And even though we're a representative democracy, in the US, so we vote for people who vote for things, which is not a true democracy, the collective consciousness is a true democracy. As in, there are collective conscious beliefs. And basically, we kind of vote for them. Like, I agree with that belief, right? Or I disagree. And what happens is when we find ourselves even with 1% of agreements with a collective conscious belief that we're like, oh, consciously, I don't actually agree with that. That's a pretty gross belief. It's pretty heavy. When we do the work and release it, we release it from ourselves and then we release it from our ancestors. It gets released from the collective consciousness. And then what happens is someone's like, oh, it's almost like a light goes on. Someone's like, oh, other people are choosing not to believe it, and it'll have a ripple effect. And it seems small, but when we do the belief changes in ourselves and in our family, it can start to shift and it can turn into a tidal wave. And so when we do the deep belief work, especially on the ancestors, it can shift things. And that is the power that we can't have. And there's some of you I know out there who listen to this who are also going to be showing up on the streets and speaking for you believe, which is another way for you to gain power or to act in your power. So that's the big thing to really work through in July. So you can check the beliefs on any level. I am powerless on all levels. I can change my country on all levels. I am safe. But understanding the power that you do have is going to be important in July. August. August is going to um it can feel August is going to feel like a defeat to a lot of people, especially as people are feeling shouted down and unheard because there are so many opposing voices. There's going to be a lot of tension as people, again, not everybody's listening because not everybody did the work earlier in the year to understand what it feels like to be heard. And so there's going to be a lot of people who feel invalidated emotionally and invalidated in a lot of ways. So I want you to know, dear listeners, that your emotions are valued and you're allowed to feel all the things that you feel in August. Grieving is going to be very important to make sure that you make the time and the space to grieve. And to also give yourself permission to unsubscribe from some conversations. Because not everything being said this month is worth listening to. Because a lot of people are speaking from a place of anger, and it's literally their anger and maybe their demons and maybe their pain that is speaking and not the highest truth. Again, this there's going to be a lot of miscommunications this year. A lot of people, yeah, not speaking from their truth. They're speaking from their pain. And so again, another month to not be on, so that's good to be not be on social media unless you've already, curated your list. And yeah, don't feel any responsibility in August to respond to anybody's arguments. It is not the time to try to convince anyone of anything, especially, and this is especially in your personal life, right? You're still writing letters to Congress, you're still doing those things. But you don't need to convince your neighbor that you're right. This is going to be a really good month to, if you're feeling it, to pull back and be a little bit of a hermit, even though we didn't draw the hermit card, but to release yourselves from social obligations and really allow yourself the space you need. There's no beliefs to check. We're not going to push you anymore. You're already going to be pushed. Like self-care is going to be the biggest thing. And also just know your truth and stick to it. Even though you don't have to convince anybody of your truth, but just be with your truth. So sending everybody a lot of love for August. September? September is going to be interesting. Like I said, the dam is going to burst. Things are going to change. we have, and this again, not everyone uses this rune, the blank rune, Odin's rune. I've loved it, right? I think Ralph K. Bloom was the first time that it was like introduced. So some old school rune people are going to say it's not a thing, but I've learned to love this one. It is, I don't know. It's the energy of the unknown. It and it's the card that it's with, it's actually pretty amazing. Because it came with the Ace of Pentacles and the Six of Wands, and both of those in this deck are amazing cards. So there are going to be some really, really beautiful surprises that come through in September. All the hard work that you've been doing is finally going to pay off. Things are going to shift in a really, really big way. But the universe is also holding those cards close to the month, so we don't get a preview. We don't get to know what's going to happen. You just have to trust that it's going to be good for us. So with that, as you're going through the year leading up to September, again, hold on to your truth, keep doing the inner work. And when things get light, if you just, roll with the energy, because again, things are going to be good. Yeah, in May, right? And again in September. So just know that there are going to be easy months where, in between the constrictions, things are just going to things are really going to flow easily. Um, there's going to be new jobs as things change in the economy. It's not necessarily reading like a boom, just a change, like how we prioritize how we spend money is going to shift a lot, and that's going to bring up new opportunities. So be ready. So that's another reason why signals, staying in touch with your intuition is a big thing this year. Because through all the noise, you need to follow that intuition of here's what I need to build, right? So for some of us, we may have some challenges earlier in the year with our money. But if we are following our intuition of here's what we need to build, if you build it, they will come. There, it's going to come in September. So keep throughout the year building things to get ready to take advantage of the energy of September. Because there's going to be a lot of opportunities. For people are going to be ready to heal, they're going to be ready to move. So beliefs to make you ready for September is I know how to take action, I'm comfortable with surprises, and I know how to recognize an opportunity. And journaling prompt, what do I make it mean when I don't know the answer? If September is rocking for you and it's easy, your bonus work can be facing your worst fears. So when we do fear work, it's all about looking into if that's really true, what's the worst thing that could happen next, and following that train of thought of then and then and then until the end to figure out what you're really afraid of. So October, October. October is going to be two conflicting energies. You're going to have the energy of everything's moving too fast and I just want to stand still. Um, yeah, it's going to be a lot of movement. And the movement particular, it's not like September where you're like, oh my gosh, I got this. Energy is moving and it's moving in a way that's comfortable and fun for me and I'm in my zone and I can jam out. September is a jam out month, right? October, the way that things are moving, you have to be adaptable. So there's going to be a lot of movement, but it's movement that requires you to adapt, which is why there's going to be that retraction and that like desire to stand still and to not change because you've freaking changed so much already this year, and maybe you're tired of all the change. And I get it. It's also the month to really, really work through your fear, right? Because you have the space and the time. The energy of this month is going to trigger a response in our survival self. It's going to trigger a response in our fears. It's going to bring up the fears. So, it's going to be a good month to work through the litany of fear from Dune if you're into that. But yeah, it's definitely And it's not going to, the fears that it's going to bring up, it's not like in July where like there's real and present danger. This is going to be like a second time to work through what are my imagined fears? Like, why am I afraid of spiders? Why am I afraid of clouds, right? What's really that fear belief below that, right? Why am I afraid of success is going to be another one that comes up. Okay, so beliefs that you can check is I fear change. Constant fear keeps me safe. That's a big one if you've been through some trauma in the childhood, because you need to feel like you need to keep in fear to be alert. And on any level, it's safer to be invisible. All right. Oh, we do have the Hermit in November. I knew he showed up somewhere. Hermit and Three of Swords. And Theresa. So a lot of deep learnings are going to happen in November. Things are going to slow down. You're not going to have this tidal wave of energy pushing you like you have the last 2 months. So it's another month that you can breathe, but it's a month that you can breathe into releasing some of the sadness, not from this year, but up until now, there's been a lot of the past that's been brought up, a lot of old patterns. It's going to be a lot of old wounds that are going to come up this year to be healed. And, I'm a little biased, but it's going to be a great a great month to do a lot of deep belief work. I may actually plan a world relations class that month just because it's going to be good energy for it to really do some deep healing, letting go of things that have happened a long time ago and understanding the virtues and the lessons that we got from the beliefs that developed from the pain that we've been through. Because every time we go through something painful or intense and we make it mean something, like after the event, we're like, oh, I'm this or I'm that. We have a new self-identity. We get a virtue from that new identity that we've created. And this is going to be a month where like the energy is just going to be perfect for acknowledging that. Again, it's another month where people are going to want to withdraw. We really only have one super social month, to be honest. It's going to be a year of a lot of interpersonal conflicts. So in general for this year, give yourself permission to socialize only with the people that you really want to be with. So again, no specific prompts for this month. It's just basically whatever is up, follow that, go with it, right? And December. Again, don't feel obligated to do any any social obligations. Allow yourself to not. And this is interesting how often this comes up in December, year by year by year. How December is often not a good time to be social, yet it's one of our most social times of the year. So you really want to truly honor yourself. In fact, we have another one of our horse runes, manas. I love manas. It is the first in some of them. And it's really about coming back to your truth. Who are you? Truly honoring yourself. There's been so much self-discovery this year, and you just want to really understand or decide with all the new things that you've learned in 2025, who do you want to be going forward? It's a really good time for you to honor that. And it's interesting too. I sort of love the way Seven of Swords comes up in this deck. And what is the message is coming through really strong is now that you know yourself and you understand your path and your free will, if you haven't already, you need to let go of your need for other people to be a certain way. Does that make sense? That we all have free will. We have no choice over the choice, no control over the choices of others, simply how we respond to their choices. And it's really hard to watch people decide for themselves not to heal or watch people decide for themselves to stay in pain. but also understanding what is your role in relation to other people's pain and allowing people to live their own lives. This is really about like, I'm going to live my life the way that I choose. And I'm gonna let you live your life the way that you choose without making it mean anything, that you're choosing to live your life that way. So it really is a year of personal accountability and personal freedom. And as you recognize the freedom and the power that you have, letting go of your need to have anyone else live their life the way that you live yours. I mean, basically, this is, what's going to happen by the end of this year is hopefully um, we can all stop trying to tell other people how to live their lives and what to do with their bodies and themselves. All right, beautiful people. That's it. I think I'm going to do breakdowns month by month later. We go a little bit deeper into each month, but remember to, as things come up, to really work through them this year because everything's going to come back around. All the energies early in the year are going to come back around a second time. And it's going to be a lot easier on you if you're really being introspective, acknowledging your lessons, shifting the energy, going to your healers for sure. Even healers need to go to healers and making sure that you address everything that comes up emotionally in the beginning of the year and over the summer. And that's going to make your year go pretty fascinating. It can be an amazingly healing year if you address the deepest truth in yourself. All right, beautiful souls. Thank you for hanging with me and listening to all that. Thank you so much. Again, for those of you on YouTube, like and subscribe, tell your friends. And again, if you need help working through all of these, you can find me at houseofkellen.com. I'm going to be doing personalized readings for people if you want to know what is your particular energy, because this is the collective, what the collective's going through. Yeah, and we're each going to have our own journey inside this year. So there may be times where some of these months, even though it sounded heavy, might be easy for you because on some level you've already done the work. So if you want to get a personalized one, again, just go to houseofkellen.com and find the link to book with me. All right. Have an amazing day and keep listening.